Hello friends, my name is Real Emile and welcome back to Forza Motorsport 5 Top Gear Laps. Now we are continuing on the Top Gear Lap series with cars from between 2005 and 2009 today. If you've never seen this series before, basically the simple idea is I take the cars out and do between 6 and 7 laps. We record the best times and then they go up on our leaderboard. The car in first place currently is a Ferrari Enzo with a time of 1:15.7. So we're here today to see if anything is going to knock it off. I've picked a wide variety of cars here, so let's get in with it. The first car today is the Mitsubishi Lancia Evo X, or 10. This car has 305 horsepower, 315 pounds-feet of torque, and weighs 3,393 pounds. Oh, 95 pounds, sorry. I was actually quite surprised by this car. I wasn't expecting it to be the FQ300 version. I was expecting the, was it FQ360 was the most powerful one until they made that mental 400 horsepower last edition, because obviously they're not making the Evo anymore. But yeah, overall this car drove, well, pretty much as you would expect. It was kind of like the R34 from last week. It's a four-wheel drive car, so it's safe. It's not going to go too tail happy. Yeah, decent enough car to drive. There was some understeer because, well, it's four-wheel drive. There's obviously going to be. And it wasn't the quickest thing in the world, I've got to be honest. But other than that, solid all-round car. Me personally, the Evo 10 is not my cup of tea. I'm more of a Impreza fan, although I will say, as far as it comes to the 2008 body shells, you had the Evo X, or you had that Super Impreza hatchback. I'd much rather have this, because it's not actually a bad looking car, this Evo X. Anyway, second to last corner. I take that a bit weird. Some people might find I don't actually go for the apex, I go for sort of a wide line through there, and that actually seems to be quicker from what I can guess, but with some cars it's different. I'm still figuring out bits and bobs about the Top Gear track, so you know. Anyway, the next car is the Shelby GT500. This has 500 horsepower, 480 pounds-feet of torque, and weighs 3,896 pounds. So this is a very heavy muscle car. We had the 2013 Shelby GT500 round here in Series 1, and it actually wasn't that bad. And I've got to be honest, this 2007 model is a lot better than you'd think. It's actually quite tame to drive. It looks absolutely superb. This is definitely one of my favourite Mustangs. It looks fantastic. I remember I used to have a little Matchbox or a Hot Wheels toy of this car in this colour, and it looks superb. Anyway, around the hammerhead, there wasn't really that much problems. Usually you'd think the tail would come out in this Shelby, and sure, if you mash the throttle like an idiot, then yeah, you could get the tail round, but for the most part, it was fairly civilised. It was good. Through here we did get the bit of a slide. That is extremely scary through there to take a slide. And I was quite close to the grass there, so that wasn't the most fun I've had driving a car, I've got to be honest. Anyway, last corner, I'm currently still deciding on the best line through here. I'm not sure whether to just boot it or whether to take it more calmly. I've been watching quite a bit of Top Gear recently to, you know, survey the way they do the track, and they usually take that last corner fairly civilised, and that seems to be quite quick, so I'm going to try that in the next few episodes. But feel free to tell me down in the comments what your favourite lines are through these corners. Anyway, next up, Aston Martin DBS. Figures on this: 510 horsepower, 420 pounds-feet of torque, 3,737 pounds. Which, to be fair, the stats and figures of the GT500 and the DBS aren't actually that much different. DBS, I've got to say, is absolutely lovely to drive this car. All the Aston Martins seem to be. They're very, very nice to drive. But it's not quick around the corners. It definitely feels heavy, this car. It's not light at all. In a Ferrari or the McLaren or something like that, they usually feel quite light, and the rear end could fly out at any moment. This car, the rear end doesn't feel like it's going to fly out, and if it does, it's controllable. But through the corners, you just can't take the amount of speed you'd want to. That being said, straight line, it was very quick. It's an Aston Martin, so obviously it's got to be, and it looks absolutely fantastic. Yeah, DBS, not my favourite car to drive in the world, but definitely nice if you want a little bit of a cruiser. Next up we have my favourite, the Corvette ZR1. 638 horsepower, 604 pound-feet of torque. I've got that written backwards for some reason. £3,350. I've spoke quite a few times about my love for the C6 ZR1 Corvette. It's a superb car to drive, this one. It's a lot better than you'd think. As far as cars in this sector, 110,000 credit supercars, I like to call them. I'm probably going to be doing a video on them soon because they're actually quite a diverse range of cars, but this one is exceptional value for money. And to be perfectly honest with you, it drives better than most of the supercars I've driven about. In fact, I'd say this probably drives better than a Ferrari 458 Italia, but we'll have to see when that finally comes to the track. Through the Hammerhead, yeah, every car can be a little bit scary through here. The low-powered cars are lots of fun around there. The high-powered ones, not so much. You definitely need a brake and a lift-off and so on. That's a tricky corner to get right. Second to last corner, you can often go wrong here and go wide. The Corvette did a few times. It's so easy to overshoot that corner, and so is this last corner. That's sort of where I lose my time mostly, is just through them last two corners because I don't like them. Next up, we have a Ferrari 430 Scuderia, 503 horsepower, 346 pound-feet of torque, which is not that much actually. I'm quite surprised. And 2,935 pounds. Yeah. Overall, this is probably one of my favourite Ferraris. I prefer this over the 458, I've got to be honest. In my opinion, it's better looking and it's slightly better to drive. I quite like that grille it's got on the front of it as well. It's interesting. Anyway, to drive, well, this car, like I said, is basically, it's kind of like the 458 Lite Edition. You know, it's not quite as difficult to drive as that car, but at the same time, you know, it hasn't got quite the amount of speed and so on of that car. But it's decently nice to drive anyway. Yeah, it was alright. Through the Hammerhead, it's quite, yeah, coming out the Hammerhead, it's quite easy to get sideways if you just slam your foot into the throttle, which is kind of what you need to get away from that corner. Through there, it got slidey again. For some reason, the Ferrari seemed quite tail happy, so we'll have to see if that affects the time. The second to last corner, it was pretty good in this car. It's definitely got decent turning, unlike some of the American cars we've been driving around today. Yeah, today, so next we have our Enzo Challenger, which is the Pagani Sonda Sync, which has 678 horsepower, 535 pounds-feet of torque, and weighs 2,858 pounds. I do love a Zonda, and this is probably the best one in the world. It looks absolutely superb, and it drives, well, absolutely superbly. The Enzo we had around last time, you know, that could get a bit squirrely now and again. This just grips. It's a really, really good car, this one. It is extremely expensive. It's about 1 million credits if you want one. But, yeah, it's decent enough as far as the more elaborate supercars go. Straight line speed, obviously, it's got a lot of that. Not quite as much as, you know, some of its rivals in this class. And I don't even think it's quite as fast as the Enzo, to be honest with you. But through the corners, it can just muller the Enzo. It really can. The second to last corner was not a problem in this car whatsoever. You can take such a wide line through there, which means you can take a lot of speed towards the last corner, where unfortunately we have to slow it down quite a lot. Unfortunately, the lap does cut out there, which was a problem I was having this week. I'm going to record these a bit differently next week to see if I can alleviate that problem. The last car we have today is an Audi RS4. This was sort of a last minute car that I just threw around because I saw it and went, let's have a look. Anyway, stats and figures wise, 428 horsepower, 317 pounds-feet of torque, and a 3,638 pounds of weight. The RS4 drives pretty decently. It's another one of these safe four-wheel drive cars. And four-wheel drive cars don't drive too much differently from each other unless they're like stupidly high-powered. As far as the RS4 goes, it's well balanced, it's taut, it's very good. Yeah, that's basically all I can really say about this car. It's also quite cheap for what it is as well. 42,000 credits will buy you a RS4, which is... that's not too much more than that Evo that just went round, and this has got 120 more horsepower. Yeah, and the suspension is a bit less soft than it is on the Evo, because the Evo was indeed a rally car. As far as complaints around here, none really. There was some understeer, but other than that, it was fairly decent. Yeah, nothing really to report on the RS4. Pretty lackluster lap. Anyway, on to the times, and we have a new leader. The Pagani's on the sink, goes into first with a 1 minute 13.404, beating the Enzo by almost 2.5 seconds. That's, yeah, that was a quick lap. The 430 Scuderia finds itself in third place with a 118.725. Not a bad time from the Scuderia. Corvette finds itself in 6th, 119.496, beating a SLR McLaren and a Ford GT. Yeah, that car is quick, and I seriously suggest you give that one a go. Audi RS4, 122.983, just got under 123. And yeah, that's it was a fairly uninteresting lap time, I've got to be honest, but yeah, the RS4 was decent enough. Aston Martin DBS, 123.244. Yeah, if that car had a bit less weight, it would probably have been a bit quicker, but yeah, respectable enough, I guess. We'll have to wait and see when we use the larger cars, where the DBS ends up. And finally, from this bunch in 9th, we have the Shelby GT500, 125.898. Decent time. It beats a BMW Z8, which is actually quite surprising for a muscle car. Yeah, I wasn't expecting too much great things from the Shelby, but it turns out it's really nice to drive. And finally, in 12th, the Evo 10, 126.536, gets beaten by a Skyline R34. Yeah, the Evo was decent enough, but I think the R34 had just that edge in power and was a bit more planted, so yeah, that beat that. Now, one quick thing I wanted to add to this episode is I actually wanted to show you what the real times are compared to the times we're getting in-game, and I think I'm going to do this at the end of each episode now. So the Ferrari Enzo in real life did 119.0, in-game we got 115.7. Yeah, that's a huge margin. But as you go down the list, there's some, you know, the gaps get a bit less. 430 Scuderia, 119.7, game time 118.7. ZR1, real time was 120.4 in the damp, the game time was 119.5, that ZR1 is quick. SLR McLaren, 120.9 real, game time 120.5. That car's really heavy, to be honest with you, we discussed that last week. Ford GT is slightly quicker than it is in real life. RS4 slightly quicker than it is in real life. The EBS is quite a lot quicker than it is in real life, but that was a wet lap. It beats the real time by 4 seconds there. Evo X, again, not much difference there. The GT500 is a big one. 130 in real life, 125 in game. Yeah, that's a huge margin there. Civic Type R, 132.8 real time, 130.2 in game. And finally, the Clio V6, 136.2, but that lap was very wet, and the car even spun out, I think, on the way to the line, and in-game we got 129.7, which isn't a particularly spectacular time anyway, but that car, the Clio V6, is definitely something to behold. Anyway, friends, that's it for this episode. Next episode, we'll be running 2011 to 2015 cars, so I hope you join me then for that, and until next time, farewell.